Welcome back to another practical session with Mr. Chen. Alright, today I will demonstrate to you how to sow seeds in a seed tray using peat moss as our soilless medium or rooting medium. Alright, before we get into the demonstration, I want to show you a tray with some pop choice seedlings. Alright, so here I have a seed tray with pop choice seedlings. Alright, now there are a number of places where you can sow your seeds. Now anywhere you sow your seeds is called a nursery. Alright, so in this case my seed tray here is a nursery. If I sow them out in a seed bed, the seed bed is a nursery. I could also sow them into a seed box. The seed box would be a nursery. I could sow them in a cup, right, a jug, etc. That would be our nursery. Alright, so anywhere we sow our seeds, we call that a nursery. Now, before we get into the demonstration of how to sow seeds in a seed tray, let us look at the advantages of sowing seeds in a seed tray as compared to sowing seeds outdoor in a seed bed. Alright, number one, when you sow your seeds in a seed tray, you can easily take care of them on your veranda, in a greenhouse. You can accommodate your seedlings better indoor than when they are outdoor. Okay? Alright, number two is that when you sow your seeds in a seed tray, you will be able to protect your seedlings better when you are ready to transplant them. Alright, so what I mean is, as you can see here, when I just take out the seedling out of the tray, the roots are intact, they are not disturbed. Now that is very important, as if you are taking them out from a seed bed, the root systems will be disrupted. Alright, and that can set back your seedlings maybe a week, because when you plant those seedlings with the disrupted roots out in the field, the seedling will take about a week to generate new roots, and so slow down the growth rate of the seedling. Now if when your seedlings are intact and you plant them from your seed tray directly into the field, their growth rate will not be slowed down, so they will grow a bit faster. Alright, so that's the second advantage. The third advantage is that when you are transplanting your seedlings, you can move easily from one area to the next with your seedlings without them being dried up or dehydrated. And number four, if you're going to operate a seedling nursery business, if you're going to sell seedlings, then you want to sow your seedlings in trays, because when the consumers or customers come to purchase seedlings, it will be easier for them to transport these seedlings without them being damaged or dehydrated, etc. Alright, now when you sow your seeds in a seed tray, right, before you transplant them out in the field, you want to harden your seedlings. And what that is, when you harden them, you make them acclimatize to the weather condition that is normal outdoor, right? So you expose them to the harsh sun, right? You want them to use to the rain, the sun. So what you'll do before you transplant them is to expose them to the sun little. So you might give them 20 minutes in the sun without water one day. The next day you might give them half hour, and you continue to do that. Leave them out in the rain some of the times so that they are acclimatized and harsh and tough. So when you transplant them, you will have a better survival rate of the seedlings. So remember that. If you just have your seedlings under shade cloth and you take them and transplant them out in the field directly, they will be dried up easily. Remember that, very, very important. Alright, so let us get into the demonstration of how to sow your seeds in a seed tray. Alright, so step number one is to gather all your materials and equipment needed. Alright, so here I have my seed tray. Now the parts of the seed tray is that you have these holding areas, you call them cells. Alright, C-E-L-L-S. Alright, now each cell has a hole in it, and those holes are for drainage. Of course, you want to make sure air or oxygen is passing through your soil. You don't want too much water in your soil or too little. Alright, you want air, you want water, both of them to be in your soil. Alright, so this is your seed tray, and of course your seed trays, they come in different sizes. What happened, you might use to these terminologies: direct seed planting and indirect seed planting. Now your seed tray is a form of indirect seed planting, meaning you plant your seeds in a seed tray. When they turn seedlings, you transplant them out in the field, right? Direct seed planting is when you plant your seeds directly out in the field for them to germinate. Okay? So the seed tray is normally used as an indirect method of seed planting. Now, you might also be familiar with the idea that, okay, there are some seeds that are ideal to be transplanted directly out in the field, and there are some that are suitable for transplanting indirectly. Alright, while that is so, the smaller seeds, you normally plant them indirectly. Your smaller seeds, like your cabbages. The larger seeds, like your pumpkins, like your corns, you plant them directly out in the field. Alright, so the size will determine that. However, with the seed tray, you can plant any type of seeds, whether the direct seeds or the indirect seeds in your seed trays. So the smaller seeds, the large seeds, you can all plant them in your seed tray. So that's another advantage here, alright? Alright, so if you notice, your seed trays, the cells, they come in sizes according to the size seeds you want to plant. So if you want to plant larger seeds, you use cells that are large. If you want to plant smaller seeds, you use cells that are small. Alright, here we have watering can. Alright. Your hand shovel. These are your okra seeds. They are medium in size. They are not very small and they are not very large. Alright. You need a bucket, and this will be your mixing bucket. This is where we're going to mix the peat moss in, because we're going to wet the peat moss before we actually put it in the seed tray. You might need a rag or kerchief or cloth to help you clean up during the process. Alright, also you need a pair of gloves. Very important, it's always important to protect yourself from chemicals or even some microbes. Very, very important. Those can be dangerous to you, to your health. Alright, also you're going to need water. Alright, so let's move to step number 2. So we're going to select our seed tray. So I'm going to select the seed tray with medium sized cells. Alright, good. Now, the peat moss, this is the peat moss. The next step is I'm going to get the bucket and I'm going to put the peat moss in the bucket. I'm going to put enough that I'll need, alright? This one is already wet. Well, I think that amount will be enough. But I have enough, so if I'm going to need more, I have excess. So you should always try to have excess. Alright, so if it was dry, then you would have to go and wet it. But it's already wet. Alright, and this is good enough. So after I mix my peat moss and moisten it, then I'm going to 3/4 fill the tray, the cells, with the peat moss. Alright. Now there is a reason why I wet the peat moss. It helps it to fill out the cells easily. If it was dry, it would be difficult. When you start to apply the water to it, it will be difficult to absorb the water while it is in the tray. So I find it very easy to wet the peat moss first. Alright, so you ensure that all your cells are filled with the soil medium or the peat moss. The root system of your plants, it is very important. So you want to make sure that when those seeds start to germinate, they have enough soil for the roots to anchor. Alright? Alright, the next thing is I'm going to get the okra seeds. Now these okra seeds are purchased from the farm store in my area. So of course those producers or retailers, if you notice, those seedlings, they will come treated. So what I mean is that they apply insecticides to them to protect them from insects. Alright, so if you notice, they have a pink color on them. Now that's the color of the insecticide. They are normally brown in color, naturally brown in color. Alright? So with these seedlings, they are inorganic seedlings. They are not organic. Okay? Alright. Now that I have my seeds, I'm going to put one seed per cell. These seedlings are medium in size and I'm going to put one seed per cell. Now what I'll do is to put the seed in the middle of the cell and I will compact it. Compact it. I am not covering them now, so I'll be able to see where I'm putting them, so I will not make a mistake and put two in a hole. Alright? So I put one in a hole for a cell. If you notice, I am compacting it so it goes down a little down in the medium because I want to leave enough space. So I'm going to, for when I put on another layer of the peat moss. Also, I want to remind you that you can also make your own medium, your own root medium, using different soilless mediums. Alright? Alright, so all the seeds are in the cells, in the middle of the cells. Now, the reason for having each seed in the middle of the cell is that you want the roots to be equally distributed in the peat moss. Alright? Now, the next step, after you place your seedlings in the tray, the next step is that you're going to cover those seedlings. Alright? So you're going to get some additional peat moss and you're going to just cover. Alright, so you would cover the seeds, as was said. Alright, what will happen now is that one important question that you might ask is how deep to plant your seeds. Now, you want to plant them as deep as the diameter of your seed. Now, the diameter means across, the length across a seed. Alright? However, with the okra seed, you might plant it a little bit deeper than the diameter of the okra seed, but that's a guide that you can use. It can be up to ½ inch, up to an inch deep in the soil. Alright, it will still germinate successfully once those seeds are viable. Alright, another important thing to know is that these seeds will take about 2 to 12 days to germinate. Alright, and remember that germination is when a seed turns into a seedling. Alright, so the next step from this now is to water the seeds. So I'm going to put water in this watering can. Now, the important thing, why do I use a watering can and not the watering bottle? The watering bottle, because the mouth is so large, the water will come out in a large force and wash out the seeds and even the peat moss. So I don't want to use the bottle. The watering can, it has a nozzle. This is the nozzle, and the nozzle has many tiny holes, and those tiny holes will ensure that the water comes out with a small force. Alright, so I'll take my time and I will water. Alright, so once your seedlings are already sown in this seed tray, what you do is to place it at the ear of your choice on your veranda in your greenhouse. But what you want to do is to ensure that a lot of sun don't catch it initially for at least the first 3 days. What you want to do is to keep it in the dark as possible. So you can cover it with another tray, you can place another tray over it. And what that will happen is that it will keep the area moistened, so you don't have to water every day. Alright, another thing is that seeds germinate better in the dark. When they start growing, they will need the light. The shoot system will need the light. The roots will need the dark. Alright, so what you'll do is to cover it up, you can use another tray. And you want to check 2 days after and onward to make sure that the seeds, once they start germinating, you remove the seed tray. Alright, so you can place them in your nursery, and anywhere you put them is your nursery. You don't want water to be eating them. You want them to keep warm. You want air to be catching it. It to be remain moist and in the dark and free from pests. The seeds are now 5 days old. Today we are going to make an observation of those seeds, and also we are going to observe, we're going to take a look at the parts of the setup of the nursery. Alright, so let us start with the setup of the nursery. As you can see here, I use a shade cloth to shade the seeds and the seedling. So the shade cloth, it will basically limit the amount of sun that will catch the seeds. In some cases, it will also protect the seeds from certain insects if it is fully covered. In this case, it was not fully covered. Alright, what I did was to make a stand out of board, and this stand is basically to support the shade cloth. Now, what I would advise is that if you're going to do it, if you can use PVC pipes, it will be more durable for you in this weather. The board will rot after a while, but if you want to go into it and stay for a long time, PVC pipes would be a better option. Alright, so let's look closely at the seedlings. So I'm just going to remove the stand. The advantage with this setup is that I can move it very easily. Alright, I can move the parts very easily. Alright, so these are your seedlings at 5 days old. Some of them started to germinate. As you can see, some are growing very tall. You don't want them to grow very tall. The reason for that is because of the shade cloth. The shade cloth is there and it's limiting the sun. The seedlings will try to grow towards the sun, hence the stem will get very tall and slender and weak. You don't want that. So what we can do to prevent that is we can use a shade cloth that will allow more sun to catch the seedling. So we can take off this shade cloth that limits a lot of the light, and we're going to put another one that will give the seedlings more light. Alright, and that way it will prevent etiolation, which is the overgrowth of the stems, and they are normally weak. And that is caused by the stem growing towards the sunlight. They're trying to get as much sun as possible. So shoot system normally grow towards the sun. Alright, so these are the seedlings. So as you can see, the tester is still on some of the leaves. So this is what is called your first leaf. These were once the cotyledon of the seed. Of course, the okra is a dicot seed. It has two cotyledons. There, so as you can see here is that the cotyledons, when the seeds are germinating, they will come above the soil. So that is why you will notice the tester is above the ground here, because these were the cotyledons. These first leaves, these were the cotyledons, right? So they come above the soil level, which is here. Alright, so what you should also notice is that some of the seeds are not yet germinated. Some of them are still germinating. As I said, okra might take 2 to 12 days to finish germinating. If not, we can replace those cells back with other okra seeds. We're having about a 50% germination rate at the moment. So we're going to observe them for the next, we're going to keep observing them until 12 days. And also we're going to record the germination rate. That is very important. We want to know if those seeds were viable or not. Alright, if they're not viable, then we won't replant, we won't sow them back. We get another set of okra seeds and sow them. This is basically the end of the practical demonstration. Always remember to stay tuned, subscribe to the channel. I'll provide you with detailed information as I promised. Alright, to support the channel, please share the video with a friend.